There is a place where silence echoes louder than screams. A place where the walls remember every secret, every sin, and every whisper of madness. High in the Colorado Rockies, alone and snowbound, stands the Overlook Hotel, a monument, not to comfort, but to the fragile line between sanity and insanity. Here the monsters are not only ghosts or haunted halls, but the demons of addiction, rage, and despair that live inside us all. King wrote this book from a raw and personal place. He himself was grappling with alcoholism and the fear that he might hurt those he loved most. Jack is no monstrous villain at first. He's a father trying to do right, a man seeking a fresh start. But once the seeds of frustration, ego, and old wounds take root, they grow monstrous, all on their own. You will not simply hear the shining recounted. You will feel every tremor of the Overlook's haunted heartbeat. You will walk alongside Jack, Wendy, and Danny. As the snow falls heavier, the shadows grow longer, and the line between reality and nightmare blurs. Each chapter will unfold like a scene from a powerful psychological drama, pulling you deeper into the storm. That's what makes this novel timelessly terrifying. We recognize ourselves in its haunted halls, on how isolation can twist love into hate. It's a story that asks, how well do we know the people we love? And what do we become when the doors are locked? The snow piles high, and the darkness inside us is the only thing left awake. Through Jack Torrance's tortured spiral, King exposed the dark gravity that addiction can exert on a person's soul. Prepare yourself to step into the grand, empty halls of the Overlook Hotel. Listen for the whispers. Watch the shadows. Because here, in Stephen King's The Shining, every room tells a story. And not all stories want to stay buried. This is The Shining, Stephen King's immortal tale of psychological terror. A story that doesn't just chill the skin, but crawls into the deepest corners of the mind. First, published in 1977, The Shining didn't merely solidify Stephen King as the master of modern horror. It reshaped what horror could be. Yet The Shining is more than one man's descent. It is a study of isolation, and of how the mind unravels when the world shrinks to a snowbound prison. It is a story of a mother's fierce love, of a child's uncanny gift, and of an ancient hotel that feeds on human frailty. The Shining is steeped in the cultural anxieties of the late 1970s. The promise of the American dream soured into disillusionment. The nuclear family cracked under economic strain and personal demons. King captured these tensions, setting them inside a grand hotel meant to symbolize wealth and prestige. But rotting beneath the surface, the Overlook Hotel becomes a character in its own right. Timeless, malevolent, hungry. Why does The Shining matter today? Because it shows that true horror doesn't need vampires or it emerges from the cracks in ordinary people. Set against the bleak beauty of winter in the American Rockies, in this immersive narration, this is more than a story about ghosts. It's a meditation on madness, on the inheritance of trauma. So, it begins not with thunder or blood, but with a quiet dread hidden beneath pleasantries. A bright morning sun shines on the Overlook Hotel, perched like a crown upon the Rockies. Inside, Jack Torrance sits before the imposing desk of Stuart Ullman, the Overlook's manager, who smiles with professional warmth that never quite reaches his eyes. Jack is here to interview for the caretaker's job. A winter post that sounds simple, even idyllic. Watch over the hotel through the empty months of snow. Keep the boiler stoked. Maintain the grounds. Inside, it's hushed and waiting. Meanwhile, miles away in their rented apartment, Wendy comforts Danny, who is not an ordinary child. Wendy is relieved and hopeful. Danny, however, grows quiet. He knows things his parents cannot, and he senses the storm gathering far beyond the mountains. Danny's imaginary friend, Tony, appears in his dreams, showing him glimpses of the Overlook's corridors stained with something dark, of doors that should never open, of a place alive with hungry eyes. He has dreams he cannot explain and an ability he does not understand, a flickering sense of things to come, of people's feelings and thoughts. But Danny White died, and still feels the cold breath of the future. The Overlook Hotel is waiting, and its doors will soon close behind them. This is the shine, a psychic gift inherited, perhaps, but also cursed. In Danny's mind, words like redrum murder, spelled backward, whisper in the dark. He sees visions of the Overlook, visions that twist and bleed. He is too young to understand, but old enough to be terrified. But the air hums with something unsaid, something cold and old as the mountain. Jack, a man of charm and frayed edges, sees this job as a last chance to rebuild his life, repair his marriage, and prove himself worthy after years of disappointment. He is a former teacher, a struggling writer, and a recovering alcoholic, each identity bruised by his temper. Ullman reluctantly recounts the tragedy of Delbert Grady, a previous caretaker who, during a particularly harsh winter, killed his wife and twin daughters with an axe before turning the weapon on himself. A shiver passes through the room. The Overlook does not just challenge men, it consumes them. Yet Jack waves off the grim story, eager to seem unshaken. It's just a story, he tells himself. Yet he sells his confidence with a smile. He is determined to convince Oman that he can handle 5 months of isolation with his wife, Wendy, and young son, Danny. But as Ullman's words drift between small talk and foreboding, the hotel's dark history begins to surface like a corpse in thawing ice. Outside the hotel, the world is beautiful and vast. Jack returns home that evening, buoyed by Ullman's acceptance. He has the job. The chapter closes with a fragile hope hanging over the family. Jack dreams of a fresh start. Wendy prays for peace. Snow has not yet begun to fall, but a heavy stillness already blankets the Overlook. As the Torrance family winds their battered Volkswagen up the twisting mountain road, the trees close in like silent watchers. Every mile takes them farther from the life they knew, deeper into a realm untouched by time or reason. She is the glue that holds this fragile family together, the quiet strength balancing Jack's simmering anger and Danny's haunted innocence. There is a thrill to the emptiness, the vast, echoing halls, the long, carpeted corridors that seem to go on forever. He runs his hand along ornate wooden walls, feels the throb of the hotel under his palm. Hotel staff bustle like ghosts, preparing for their own winter exodus. The cook, Dick Halloran, emerges from the kitchen with a warm smile and a perceptiveness that startles Danny. Halloran has the shine too, a fact he quietly reveals to the boy with gentle words and a knowing look. He speaks mind to mind with Danny for the first time, sharing warnings cloaked in kindness. There are places in this hotel that are bad, Danny. They remember things. Stay out of room 217. The Overlook seems to breathe, to sense him. And in return, Danny senses it. As the last employees drive away, the first flakes of winter begin to fall, their taillights fading like dying stars. The Overlook grows utterly silent. Snow clouds gather on the horizon. The Torrances are alone now. The hotel's doors close with a soft, final thud that echoes through the empty halls, like the toll of a distant bell. The stage is set. Through his shine, he glimpses fleeting shadows. A woman screaming in room 217. A man in a dog costume kneeling at a masked ball. Elevators gushing torrents of blood. The visions flicker like lightning, leaving him breathless. He tries to share them with Tony, but Tony is elusive, retreating into the farthest corners of Danny's mind. He imagines the peace of uninterrupted writing, the possibility of greatness awakening in the silence. The Overlook's manager gives them a grand tour. The ballroom, glinting under shadow. The gold room, smelling faintly of old cigars and ghosts. The kitchen, humming with industrial efficiency. The boiler room, the beating heart of the hotel. Here, the pressure must be checked daily, or disaster will come. It's a detail Jack barely notes, his mind already turning to story ideas. She believes this job might heal them. Jack can write, they can rest, and they can finally be a family again. But behind her resolve, a question hides like a splinter. Can a place so cold and empty ever truly offer warmth? When the Overlook Hotel finally appears through the trees, massive, stately, and almost regal, it stands like a fortress against the sky. beautiful yet unsettling, ancient and Wendy gazes up at the hotel with cautious optimism. Jack steps out first, stretching stiff legs and inhaling the thin, crisp air. Meanwhile, Danny wanders just out of earshot, drawn by something deeper than curiosity. As the day stretches on, that evening, outside, there is a place where silence echoes louder than screams. A place where the walls remember every secret, every sin, and every whisper of madness. High in the Colorado Rockies, alone and snowbound, stands the Overlook Hotel, a monument, not to comfort, but to the fragile line between sanity and insanity. It is a study of isolation and of how the mind unravels when the world shrinks to a snowbound prison. It is a story of a mother's fierce love, of a child's uncanny gift, and of an ancient hotel that feeds on human frailty. The Overlook Hotel becomes a character in its own right. Timeless, malevolent, hungry. You will walk alongside Jack, Wendy, and Danny. As the snow falls heavier, the shadows grow longer, and the line between reality and nightmare blurs. It's a story that asks, how well do we know the people we love? And what do we become when the doors are locked? The snow piles high, and the darkness inside us is the only thing left awake. Each chapter will unfold like a scene from a powerful psychological drama, pulling you deeper into the storm. Because here, in Stephen King's The Shining, every room tells a story, and not all stories want to stay buried. This is The Shining, Stephen King's immortal tale of psychological terror. A story that doesn't just chill the skin, but crawls into the deepest corners of the mind. The Shining is steeped in the cultural anxieties of the late 1970s. The promise of the American dream soured into disillusionment. The nuclear family cracked under economic strain and personal demons. King captured these tensions, setting them inside a grand hotel meant to symbolize wealth and prestige, but rotting beneath the surface. First, published in 1977, The Shining didn't merely solidify Stephen King as the master of modern horror. It reshaped what horror could be. Here, the monsters are not only ghosts or haunted halls, but the demons of addiction, rage, and despair that live inside us all. King wrote this book from a raw and personal place. He himself was grappling with alcoholism and the fear that he might hurt those he loved most. Through Jack Torrance's tortured spiral, King exposed the dark gravity that addiction can exert on a person's soul. Yet The Shining is more than one man's descent. Why does The Shining matter today? Because it shows that true horror doesn't need vampires or slashers. It emerges from the cracks in ordinary people. Jack is no monstrous villain at first. He's a father trying to do right, a man seeking a fresh start. But once the seeds of frustration, ego, and old wounds take root, they grow monstrous all on their own. That's what makes this novel timelessly terrifying. We recognize ourselves in its haunted halls, set against the bleak beauty of winter in the American Rockies. In this immersive narration, you will not simply hear The Shining recounted, you will feel every tremor of the Overlook's haunted heartbeat. This is more than a story about ghosts. It's a meditation on madness, on the inheritance of trauma, on how isolation can twist love into hate. So, prepare yourself to step into the grand, empty halls of the Overlook Hotel. Listen for the whispers. Watch the shadows. The snow has thickened into a white wall around the Overlook, and the air inside grows stale with the breath of three people sealed in together. But on this afternoon, there is still a fleeting connection to the outside world. The hotel's cook has stayed behind to prepare the Torrance's final supplies. His easy smile brings warmth to the kitchen, but his eyes, sharp, knowing, are fixed on Danny. Halloran senses Danny's shine like a radio picking up a secret frequency. He tells Danny directly, if you get scared, if you see things you can't handle, you call to me with your mind. She sees Danny's face pale, his small shoulders tense. He steps into the Overlook's cavernous lobby for the last time this season. The building itself seems to breathe differently. The walls exhale a cold draft. The creaks in the night grow louder. Wendy tries to distract Danny with games and stories. Jack's restlessness grows, and the hotel, now without witnesses, turns its full attention to its winter caretakers. Snow falls outside in gentle, thick flakes, softening every sound. The last thin thread connecting the Torrances to safety has been cut. Outside, snowflakes spin wildly in the wind, sealing the hotel off in a tomb of ice and memories. Before he leaves, he gives Danny a final, piercing look, as if memorizing the boy's face, or silently promising he'll be back if called. Then the engine of Halloran's Snowcat roars to life, a fading heartbeat of the outside world. She presses Halloran for reassurance, but he merely repeats that the hotel is just like any other old place. Some things here, some things there. His eyes, though, tell a different story. I'll come as fast as I can. Danny nods solemnly. The connection they share in that instant feels like a lifeline stretching through miles of snow. As they move through the kitchen, Halloran begins to speak to Danny with his mind, without moving his lips. But their conversation is anything but ordinary. Halloran tells Danny about the shine. How some people have it strong, some just a little, and some not at all. He warns that the Overlook itself shines in a dark, twisted way. It's a place where past horrors linger like cigarette smoke, replaying themselves for anyone sensitive enough to see. How long have you been able to do this, Doc? He asked in that warm, fatherly voice. Danny's eyes widen. No one but Tony has ever shared this gift. In that moment, Danny feels less alone, but also more afraid. If Halloran knows what he can do, what does that mean about the hotel? What has it already seen? They sit in the Overlook industrial kitchen surrounded by polished steel and the comforting smell of spices. Halloran's eyes grow serious. He talks about the bad spots, rooms and hallways that remember things better left forgotten. But the gravity of Halloran's words unsettles Wendy, who only hears the normal parts of their conversation. As they finish the tour of the kitchen and storage rooms, Halloran says his goodbyes. With Halloran gone, a new loneliness settles over the hotel. The chapter ends with the Overlook's silence swelling, almost triumphant. Snow now lies deep and unbroken, a white ocean stretching from the Overlook steps into the endless pines. In the thin, pale light of afternoon, Jack and Danny venture out together into the crisp silence, father and son alone in a world turned to ice. They walk through the frozen playground, a place meant for laughter. It feels instead like a graveyard. As they turn corners, he hears whispers under the crunch of snow. The Overlook's presence seeps into the hedges, coiling into his mind with ghostly tendrils. Jack's mood has darkened once more. He slams doors, curses at trivial annoyances. That night, he dreams of the maze filled with howling wind and shifting shadows. Tony shows him flickering images of things that haven't yet happened. Blood on the walls, a croquet mallet swinging down, the word redrum scrawled in crimson letters. Danny wakes with a cry. Across the dark hotel, something stirs, pleased by the taste of his fear. The hotel's isolation feeds his frustrations like kindling catching fire. He dreams of his father, a cruel, violent man, and wakes with rage humming in his veins. Wendy senses Jack slipping further into himself. She suggests they leave, just a few weeks in. But Jack's anger flares. He insists he's fine, that the job is fine, that everything will work out if they just stay. He sees flashes, hedge animals shifting, snarling, coming to life when no one looks directly at them. His breath comes faster, his eyes dart. Jack laughs off Danny's fear, his own mood lifted by the sharp cold outside. The snow grows deeper, still burying the world in cold silence. Inside, the Overlook sharpens its claws, and the illusion of control the maze offers. But control is always an illusion in the Overlook. The jungle gym, the swings, and the old rope court stand half buried in snowdrifts. Silent sentinels to a summer long forgotten. Dominating the grounds is the Overlook's famous hedge maze, a sprawling, green labyrinth, now frosted white. Its towering hedges twist and turn into dead ends and blind corners. A puzzle that both fascinates and Jack shows Danny the entrance, like a magician revealing a secret. They walk in together, and for a moment, it feels like a game. Until the walls seem to close in, shadows gathering at every turn. Even in daylight, the maze holds a hush deeper than the hotel itself, a promise of While Jack grows invigorated by the challenge of the maze, Danny senses something else entirely. Later that evening, Danny returns to the playground alone. The sky has turned the color of iron, and shadows pooled at the bases of the hedge animals sculpted into lions, rabbits, and dogs. He approaches them warily, his little boots crunching in the snow. At first, they are still as statue, but when he looks away, just for a heartbeat, he hears a soft rustle. He spins back. A paw has shifted. Another glance away, and they are closer. Breathless, he runs back toward the hotel, never daring to look away for more than a blink. Behind him, the rustle grows louder. The animals stop the moment he bursts through the doors, leaving only silence. Inside, but Danny knows better. The hedge maze and playground have revealed the first cracks in the illusion of safety. Outside, snow piles against the Overlook's doors like an invading army. Daylight fades quickly, twilight turning the endless drifts into a monochrome dreamscape. His writing is not the masterpiece he imagined. Instead, lines repeat mindlessly. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, but the Overlook's vast halls amplify every creak of the old building. Footsteps echo where no one walks. Doors shut softly in empty rooms. He hears the clink of glasses in an empty ballroom. His words are vicious, cutting deep into Wendy's already frayed heart. His eyes go wide. At the end of the corridor stand two little girls in matching blue dresses, pale and still, hands clasped. The storm outside is relentless, and the storm inside Jack is rising faster. The Overlook watches, amused, as the threads of sanity begin to fray. They speak together in flat, dreamlike unison. Come play with us, Danny, forever and ever and ever. The walls seem to pulse. Blood rushes in Danny's ears. He closes his eyes, and when he opens them again, the corridor is empty. But something in him knows. The Overlook isn't just showing him ghosts. It wants him. He accuses her of coddling Danny, of undermining him as a father, of wanting him to fail. The rage leaves both of them shaken. Jack storms off, convinced Wendy is plotting to steal Danny away. Wendy, terrified, begins to fear Jack as much as the hotel. He sees fleeting reflections of people in evening dress, dancing to music only he can hear. His dreams become violent. Soaked in alcohol, he no longer drinks, as if the hotel itself is pouring him a phantom glass. In these dreams, he sees himself standing over Wendy with a roque mallet. Hears Danny screaming from far away. The atmosphere grows heavier with each passing day, like the hotel itself is breathing, waiting, hungry. Over and over, the same words tumble down the pages like a mantra of madness. He believes he's crafting a great work, but each page reveals only the deepening fracture of his mind. His frustration boils into anger at Wendy for interrupting him, at Danny for existing, at the world for not bending to his will. Inside, the hotel grows colder in more ways than one. What was once a hopeful silence has become a suffocating quiet. Every tick of the clock a hammer on the nerves. Cabin fever has begun to seep into the Torrance's bones like the cold itself. Jack spends his days at the typewriter in the lounge, hammering keys with growing violence. Wendy does everything she can to keep the peace. She prepares hot meals, tries to read, attempts to mask her fear with optimism. Danny, more sensitive than either of his parents, feels the pressure building in every fiber of his being. His shine picks up the lingering energy of past guests. Laughter from long-dead parties, sobs in deserted hallways, screams muffled by thick carpet. When he opens certain doors, the air tastes of rot and old perfume. He learns to avoid them, yet he is drawn to the Overlook's worst corners, unable to resist the pull of its dark heart. In these weeks, the Overlook begins to whisper more directly to Jack. One morning, Wendy suggests taking Danny outside to play. Jack explodes. Later, As Danny rides his tricycle through the hallways, humming over carpet, clattering over wood, he stops suddenly. The chapter closes with a house that no longer feels like a home. Some doors should never be opened. Some rooms should remain locked forever. But on a day when the Overlook's walls seem to hum with a dark lullaby, Danny finds himself standing before the grand double doors of room 217. The brass numbers gleam dully in the dim hallway light, the doorknob cold under his small, trembling hand. Danny steps inside, drawn by a feeling both curious and terrible. Water drips from the old porcelain tub. He edges forward. As his eyes adjust, he sees a shape. A woman, bloated and naked, skin pale as curdled milk. Jack returns to room 217 himself. Danny lies awake. It's a promise of what's to come, staring at the ceiling. Tony shows him visions of more horror. Jack swinging a mallet, Wendy screaming, the Overlook burning. The images flash like lightning in his mind. Danny feels trapped, and the Overlook knows it, determined to prove Danny's fears are just childish imagination. He enters the room, expecting silence, finding nothing. But as he turns to leave, a soft sound, like a footstep in water, comes from the bathroom. A cold breeze brushes his neck. He glimpses something pale in the mirror before he slams the door shut, heart pounding, face pale. He lies to Wendy, tells her the room was empty, but deep down, Jack knows something unspeakable has awakened. Her hair hangs like seaweed across her face. Slowly, impossibly slowly, she turns her head to look at him. Her mouth stretches in a grin too wide. Her eyes dead and hungry. Every instinct tells him to run, but something stronger pulls him forward. The Overlook's unspoken invitation. Earlier, Jack and Wendy had argued again, their voices sharp and ragged. He can't speak. He can't tell them what he saw, only that something terrible happened. Jack blames Wendy for filling Danny's head with nonsense. His anger crackles, but Wendy notices bruises forming on Danny's neck. Finger-shaped, ghostly fingerprints that could never have come from his parents. Her eyes fill with horror, and a seed of real, paralyzing fear takes root. Something in the Overlook has hurt that child. To escape, Danny set out on his tricycle, seeking corners of the hotel yet unexplored. The corridor leading to room 217 felt wrong the moment he turned into it. The air still and heavy, as if time had stopped. He paused at the door, heart pounding. He tried to walk away, but Tony's voice whispered in his mind, "Don't go in there, Doc." Yet his hand moved on its own, turning the knob, pushing the door open to darkness. The room's silence is thick as fog. Curtains shift slightly, though no breeze stirs. The bathroom door stands ajar, darkness pooling beyond. Danny's scream catches in his throat. He stumbles back, but the woman rises from the tub, water cascading off her in cold sheets. She steps toward him, arms reaching out with fingers like swollen claws. Her smell of rot and mildew fills the room. Danny runs. He crashes into the hall, tears streaming, lungs burning. The door to room 217 slams shut behind him with a thunderous finality. Downstairs, Jack and Wendy find Danny sobbing, face white as snow. Meanwhile, that night, the chapter closes with the hotel settling deeper into winter, every crack in the walls whispering with dark delight. Room 217 is no longer just a room. In the depths of the Overlook's ballroom, shadows stretch long, and the silence becomes a living thing. Jack wanders here in restless desperation, driven by the hotel's isolation and his own gnawing sense of failure. His writing is going nowhere. His temper flares at the smallest slight. He greets Jack as if they are old friends, as if they've been waiting years for this moment. Lloyd listens without judgment, only nodding and polishing a glass. He offers Jack a drink. Bourbon on the rocks. The very poison Jack swore he'd never touch again. Jack hesitates. The glass beads with condensation, amber liquid shimmering under the ballroom's phantom chandeliers. He takes it. He drinks. The Overlook feeds Jack's anger with every ghostly conversation. Lloyd tells him what he wants to hear, that his family doesn't appreciate him, that they are the cause of his failure, that they deserve his rage. The hotel's grip tightens, Jack's sense of reality dissolving into whiskey and whispers. The ballroom around them seems to fill with soft, ghostly light. He snaps at Wendy for interrupting him, for asking questions, for simply existing. His head is filled with promises of power and vengeance. The Overlook has given him what he wanted, but at a price he cannot yet comprehend. The walls seem to lean in, listening. Wendy backs away, heart hammering, realizing the man she once loved is slipping beyond her reach. The heat floods Jack's veins, loosening his muscles, silencing his guilt. He smiles, a wide, unhinged smile. The more he drinks, the more real the ballroom becomes. Tables filled with laughing guests in 1920s finery, couples swirling across the polished floor, the air humming with jazz. Jack is no longer a failed writer in an empty hotel. He is the life of the party. Music drifts in from nowhere. A slow, seductive waltz. Jack looks around, startled but enchanted. His loneliness crumbles under the illusion of company. He feels trapped in a life he cannot fix, surrounded by echoes of his past mistakes, as he steps behind the grand, polished bar, a place meant for laughter and music. He imagines himself the king of a glittering world, but the bar's shelves are empty, a cruel reminder that he's sworn off the bottle. Then, as if called from the darkness, Lloyd appears. He's the perfect bartender. Crisp white shirt, black vest, hair parted neatly, eyes sharp and smiling with infinite patience. Jack confesses everything to Lloyd. The rage he feels, the failure he fears, the pressure of holding his family together. The first swallow burns like a kiss from an old lover. Meanwhile, Wendy tries desperately to keep Danny calm upstairs. He wakes screaming from nightmares of a bloody mallet and a man who looks like his father but whose eyes burn with someone else's rage. Wendy comforts him as best she can, but her own fear grows with every night that Jack grows colder, sharper, more distant. Jack's mind continues to unravel. Lloyd becomes his confidant, his only friend in the world. One night, Jack returns from the ballroom drunk on phantom liquor, eyes glazed with hatred. The chapter closes as Jack sits alone in the ballroom's gloom, empty glass in hand, surrounded by ghosts and shimmering gowns who dance to music only he can hear. Night after night, the ballroom swells with music only Jack can hear. The empty space now glitters with 100 flickering lights. Ghostly guests gather in clusters, laughter rising like champagne bubbles, their shadows swirling across the walls. Grady appears at Jack's side, impeccably dressed, his voice soft and cultured. His words drip with sinister civility as he tells Jack what he already fears, that his family is conspiring against him. Grady's eyes glint coldly as he insists Danny is dangerous, that Wendy is weak, and that Jack's duty, his sacred duty, is to correct them. One night, she finds Jack muttering in his sleep, his voice a guttural snarl repeating correctum, 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 over and over. She backs away, realizing the man beside her is no longer the man she married. The music swells. The ghostly crowd cheers. Jack Torrance, caretaker of the Overlook, has finally joined the party. The Overlook has come alive for Jack, feeding him a grand illusion of acceptance and power. He sees faces he recognizes from the ballroom's ghostly crowd. It dawns on him. He has always been here. The Overlook wants him, needs him. It's not madness, it's destiny. They whisper that he has been wronged, that he must take control, that only through violence can he reclaim his pride. He sees the party too, but in his eyes, it's a nightmare. Masked figures, grinning with hollow eyes, rivers of blood coursing between their feet. The walls bleeding words, like redrummed Denny's shine, makes him the hotel's favorite toy, and the Overlook toys with him cruelly. He glimpses Jack chasing him with a mallet, Wendy screaming as she runs. Danny hides these visions from his mother, afraid that telling her will only make them come true faster. Grady's tale of correction rings in Jack's ears like a hymn. He sees himself not as a failure, but as a martyr for order and respect. And at the center of this spectral gala is Lloyd, who always keeps Jack's glass full. Jack drifts deeper into this world each evening. He sees men in tuxedos, with slick back hair, women in satin gowns and feathered headbands, all whirling to jazz that echoes through the marble floors. He nods to them as if he belongs, his resentment soothed by their approving smiles. The ghosts offer him what the real world never did: adoration, importance, and a place where his anger feels righteous. But among the glittering crowd lurks Delbert Grady, the previous caretaker who murdered his wife and daughters. Jack listens, intoxicated by the logic of the Overlook's ghosts. Their voices affirm as every darkest thought. Meanwhile, Denny's visions intensify. Wendy senses the change in Jack. His mood swings wildly. Some mornings he is distant, mumbling to himself, and other times he glares at her with open hatred. Jack's obsession with the Overlook's history deepens. He pores over old newspapers, photographs, and scrapbooks in the basement. The chapter ends with Jack back at the ballroom, dressed in his best suit, dancing alone in the middle of the polished floor while invisible eyes watch. Winter has swallowed the world outside. Snowdrifts reach the Overlook's first-floor windows, thick enough to muffle every scream. Inside, Wendy's unease grows into a constant, gnawing terror. His eyes, once tired but kind, are now dark and empty, reflecting only the hotel's endless halls. He spends hours alone in the lounge, fingers drumming on the typewriter keys, but the pages reveal only madness. Line after line repeating the same chilling sentence. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. She discovers these pages one evening, the sheets stacked high like a monument to his unraveling mind. The words twist into a taunt, a warning. She moves through the hotel with careful steps, always listening for Jack's heavy tread behind her, for the sharp edge in his voice that now seems to flash like a knife at the slightest provocation. The ghosts whisper encouragement to Jack from the dark corners of the ballroom. The hotel's malevolence reaches for him, tickling his mind with cruel laughter. She holds Danny close as his small body shakes with sobs. Down the hall, Jack's footsteps approach, slow and deliberate, echoing through the Overlook's frozen halls, like the ticking of a clock counting down. He knows now, with a child's absolute certainty, that the Overlook wants his family's destruction. Tony appears to him, his voice urgent. Get out now. He sees Grady again, immaculate and cold, praising his strength and reminding him of his responsibility to correct his family. Wendy sees the man she married slipping away, piece by piece, day by day. Danny, sensing his mother's fear, becomes her silent shadow. He watches her face for signs of hope, but finds only worry etched deeper each day. She remembers Halloran-esque warning about the boiler pressure, a warning Jack seems to ignore more and more. She finds Jack in the lounge, staring blankly at the ballroom doors, as if expecting someone to emerge. His face is slack, eyes unfocused. She suggests they leave, just for a few days, to clear their heads. Jack's head snaps toward her, his face contorting with rage. He accuses her of plotting to take Danny from him, of betraying him. His voice cracks the silence like a gunshot. Wendy backs away, voice trembling, but Jack follows, eyes wild. She finds the gauge climbing dangerously high, heart pounding. She releases the valve, steam hissing into the cold stone chamber like the exhale of a sleeping dragon. She knows she must protect Danny and herself, even if it means acting behind Jack's back. His visions, now nightly and relentless, show Jack pursuing them both through endless corridors, a roque mallet swinging from his bloodied hands. Tony, his spectral guide, shows him flashes of the Overlook's fate, screams, and a darkness so complete it feels alive. One afternoon, while Jack disappears into the hotel's maze of hallways, Wendy ventures into the boiler room. That evening, she tries one last time to reason with him. The Overlook watches, pleased, as the divide between husband and wife becomes a... Danny, hiding just out of sight, feels his father's anger swelling like a storm. The chapter ends with Wendy locking herself and Danny in their suite, pushing a heavy dresser against the door. The Overlook has grown colder, its shadows deeper, its whispers louder. Wendy barely sleeps, listening for Jack's every move in the hall outside their barricaded door. He rises, eyes wide but empty, and picks up his mother's lipstick, moving like a sleepwalker. He scrawls "Read Drum" across the bathroom door. The letters glow, eerily red in the lamplight. Snow bites his face as he falls onto the drift below. He knows he must hide, but also that he can't keep running forever. The wind howls louder, erasing tracks almost as soon as they're made. The hotel is fully awake now, its nightmares spilling into reality. Danny remembers the maze's layout better than anyone. He tricks Jack, doubling back, crawling through tunnels of snow, until Jack becomes hopelessly lost. Jack's breath rasps in the dark, his mind slipping completely into the Overlook's grasp. He roars Danny's name to the night, but the maze answers with only the bitter hiss of snow. Inside, Wendy fights with desperate fury. She stabs again, forcing Jack back long enough to flee. She bolts from the room, heart hammering, blood and tears freezing on her face. Together, mother and son run for the snowcat left by Holleron, their last chance for escape. Behind them, the Overlook screams with the fury of a dying beast, and the night is split by Jack's final, echoing roar, lost somewhere deep within the labyrinth. The hotel seems to roar in triumph, doors slamming open and shut, chandeliers swaying wildly. She tries to climb out herself, but the opening is too small. Behind her, the door bursts inward. Jack looms in the doorway, axe glinting. Wendy screams, swinging a kitchen knife. She slashes his hand. He howls in pain but keeps coming, relentless. His voice, flat and otherworldly, begins to chant the word over and over. Wendy jolts awake, staring in horror. As Danny points to the word, she turns, her mind spinning. And in the mirror, the reflection reveals the truth. Read Drum reversed is murder. Danny lies curled against her, but his mind is elsewhere, trapped in visions that pulse like heartbeats. Each blow booms through the Overlook like a cannon, splinters flying. His voice is a monstrous parody of the man he once was, calling to Wendy and Danny with twisted affection. Come out, wherever you are. His eyes burn with madness, face split by a grin of pure hate. This is not Jack. It is the Overlook wearing his skin, night after night. Tony shows him a single word, painted in dripping crimson across mirrors and walls. Read Drum. At first it means nothing, but each time, the word comes closer, louder, more insistent, until Danny feels it vibrating in his bones. One night, as the wind howls outside and snow hammers the windows, Danny slips into a trance. A crash interrupts her terror. Jack has taken an axe to their door. Desperate, Wendy shoves Danny through the bathroom window into the bitter night. Outside, Danny runs into the maze. The snow swirls around him, each gust a claw of ice. Jack, driven by a murderous frenzy, follows Danny's small footprints into the hedge maze. Meanwhile, Wendy staggers through the Overlook's halls, searching for her son. Every corner alive with flickering apparitions. Masked guests dancing, blood-flooding elevators, animal-headed figures whispering nonsense. The chapter closes with Danny bursting from the maze's entrance, tears streaming, lungs burning. As Wendy finds him in the swirling snow, the Overlook's fury rages behind them as Wendy and Danny stagger across the frozen grounds. The snowcat looms ahead, salvation in the shape of a battered metal machine. He calls for Danny, voice hoarse, but the wind steals his words. Steam leaks in thin white ghosts from joints along the ceiling. The boiler's gauge pulses into the red. The Overlook's ghosts swirl in the ballroom, roaring in rage. He sees the Overlook's entrance glowing with flickering light, and something like understanding breaks through his madness. He remembers the boiler, the ticking bomb in the basement he was supposed to check every day. Jack reaches the basement steps just as the needle snaps into the red. Windows shatter outward, spraying glass across the snow. Flames consume the grand halls, the ballroom, the hedge maze. Every haunted corridor, ghostly shapes swirl in the inferno, shrieking in agony as their prison collapses. The Overlook, after decades of hoarding horrors, finally meets its end. There is a heartbeat of silence, a single moment when the Overlook seems to hold its breath. Then the world explodes. She holds Danny tight, whispering comfort even as tears freeze on her cheeks. The snowcat rattles and bucks over drifts, but it carries him farther from the nightmare with every mile. Mother and son have survived, bound together by love, stronger than any ghost, fleeing into a future forever, marked by the Overlook's final secret. He runs inside, slipping on the icy floor, mind consumed by a single thought. If he can release the pressure, he can save the hotel, prove himself worthy, stay forever. The mountain night swallows the sound. The hotel and the evil within it are gone, buried under fire, ice, and the darkness of the Rockies. And panic, sensing what is coming. The party is ending. The hotel's hold slips with every ticking second. His footprints vanish behind him, replaced by shifting drifts. She fumbles with the keys left by Halloran, hands shaking so hard she nearly drops them into the snow. The engine stutters, coughing to life with a roar. Behind them, the Overlook's windows blaze with light, the hotel's voice rising in an unearthly wail that echoes off the cliffs. The maze, alive with the hotel's malice, twists its turns, guiding him not to his son, but deeper into confusion. Jack slips, crawls, screams into the snow, and the Overlook howls with him. But deep inside the hotel's belly, the boiler, the Overlook's hidden heart, has been forgotten, neglected in Jack's descent into madness. The pressure gauge creeps higher with each passing minute, the needle trembling as if alive. Inside the maze, Jack stumbles blindly. His breath rattles in the cold night, mind lost to rage, and the Overlook's whispers. Back in the hotel, the silence is punctuated by groaning pipes. Wendy, bruised but resolute, reaches the snowcat with Danny. Inside, Jack finally staggers free of the maze, frost crusting his hair and beard, eyes wide with terror. But he's too late. The boiler gauge quivers, steam hissing louder than any scream. Fire tears through the hotel's bowels, roaring up the stairwells, bursting through walls in a storm of orange and black. Wendy, driving the snowcat down the mountain, sees the Overlook's fiery glow in the mirrors. Behind them, the Overlook's scream fades, replaced by the crackle of burning timber and the hiss of snow turning to steam. The chapter closes on the snowcat's headlights cutting through the storm, Wendy's eyes fixed forward, Danny's head resting on his shoulder. The sun rises over the Rockies, pale and cold, washing the world in a light that feels almost too fragile after the long, terrible night. Smoke hangs over the distant ruins of the Overlook like a morning veil, drifting in lazy gray spirals. The once grand hotel is gone, reduced to blackened timbers and steaming craters of snow. The final proof that evil can be destroyed, though never fully forgotten. Wendy and Danny find refuge in a small town at the mountain's base, their arrival a shock to the sleepy streets as they stumble into the sheriff's office. Clothes torn, faces streaked with soot and tears. He still sees flickers of shadows, hears whispers in the corners of empty rooms, but the Overlook's voice is gone. His face crumples with relief when he sees Danny safe. He gathers the boy in his arms, murmuring that he did good, that he was brave. Halloran shares his own experiences with the Shine, assuring Danny that what makes him different can also make him strong. Nightmares linger, but each day dawns a little brighter. The mountains stand silent and indifferent, their peaks sharp against the sky, but the evil that once crouched among them is gone. The Overlook's story is over, its ghost burned away with the walls that trapped them. He promises to be there, if Danny ever needs him again, a new protector for a boy who has seen too much. They hold hands as the train pulls in, its whistle cutting through the quiet morning. They are going somewhere new, somewhere far from the Overlook, determined to build a life beyond the reach of its shadows. The past still weighs on them, but in the warmth of their bond is hope. A promise that love can endure even the darkest of nights. Halloran's presence, solid and kind, feels like an anchor to Wendy, a final sign they are no longer drifting in the Overlook's dark sea. Its hunger no longer reaches for him. He tells his mother about Tony, how Tony showed him visions to warn him, how Tony helped him find his way out of the maze. Wendy realizes Tony is a part of Danny, a spark of his own power and survival. She holds him close, promising he will never be alone again. Doctors examine Danny, finding no injuries beyond deep bruises and a haunted stare. Locals shake their heads, muttering about the cursed place. They remember stories of murders, suicides, whispers of something wrong with that hotel long before Jack Torrance ever arrived. Some townspeople even feel a strange, guilty relief, as if the mountain has been cleansed of a dark stain. Yet they avoid Wendy's eyes when she passes, afraid of the horror she might carry with her. Wendy is exhausted, but relief shimmers beneath her fear. They are alive. They are free. News of the Overlook's destruction spreads quickly. Danny's shine has grown quieter, but it hasn't disappeared. Halloran arrives days later, speeding through snowy roads after feeling Danny's psychic cry for help across miles of wilderness. Together, they talk about what happened, speaking of the Overlook as one might a bad dream, a thing that cannot hurt them anymore. As the weeks pass, Wendy and Danny begin to heal. The chapter closes with Wendy and Danny standing on a train platform, suitcases at their feet, steam curling around them. Final reflection and thematic analysis, from the first turn of the key in the Overlook's massive doors to the final shuddering breath of fire and smoke. The Shining is more than a ghost story. It is an unflinching exploration of the darkness that can grow inside the human heart, and the fragile, desperate light of love that fights to survive it. At its core lies a simple, terrible truth. Isolation is fertile ground for madness, and trauma echoes through generations if left to fester in silence. Stephen King masterfully uses the Overlook Hotel not just as a setting, but as a living character. A labyrinthine fortress of evil feeding on pain. Its halls are thick, with the residue of decades of violence and vice. Its grand ballroom, a stage where the sins of the past play on an endless loop. His alcoholism, his temper, his desperate need for approval. These weaknesses make him the perfect pawn. Its demise by fire symbolizes the purging of secrets and sins that thrive in the dark. Yet the story leaves us uneasy, because we know that while one Overlook may burn, it asks, where do we carry our own Overlook? The parts of ourselves we lock away, the unspoken traumas we pretend don't exist. And what would happen if they were given the chance to grow in the cold, silent, dark? The weaknesses it exploits are part of human nature, waiting for the right storm to awaken them again. The hotel doesn't create Jack's rage. It magnifies it, gives it a voice, and sets it free. The Shining speaks to the generational cycles of abuse and addiction. Jack's violent father haunts him like the Overlook's ghosts haunt its halls, and Jack becomes both victim and perpetrator of that same violence. Shining endures not only as a terrifying tale of ghosts and madness, but as a profound meditation on family, addiction, and the power of confronting our deepest fears. It leaves us with a question that lingers long after the fire has gone cold. When the storms come, will we let our worst selves rise, or find the courage to hold fast to the light? But the ending offers a fragile possibility that through love, understanding, and bravery, we can break those cycles and save what matters most. In this way, the true horror of The Shining isn't the ghosts, but the thin line between human frailty and monstrous acts. By placing the vulnerable Torrance family within its walls, King turns every creak and floorboard, every gust of wind, into a conspirator in their unraveling. Through Danny's eyes, we experience the Overlook's true face, its blood-soaked visions, its relentless hunger. But Danny also embodies hope. His innocence and connection to his mother become a shield stronger than any weapon. Yet, even before the Overlook tightens its grip, King shows us the seeds of Jack's downfall. She is resilience incarnate, terrified yet unwavering in her determination to protect her son. Her love, fierce and unyielding, is the force that ultimately denies the Overlook its victory. Her character reminds us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. Dany's shine is both a gift and a curse, an echo of the story's central theme. That, seeing the truth, even the ugly parts, is essential to survival. Windy, often overlooked in adaptations, is the story's beating heart. The Overlook itself represents a timeless evil, a force that cannot simply be reasoned with, but must be confronted and destroyed. On a deeper level, King's storytelling is so effective because it demands we look inward as much as outward.